Hey, episode 3. We're making pizza dough. Should be pretty tasty. What you want to do here is rehydrate the yeast. Now, since we're working with active dry yeast, each of these little rough, tiny sand grain looking things is actually live yeast cells encased in dead yeast cells. So we're going to use 2 teaspoons of that. Just kind of toss it in there. By the power of Grayskull, we have yeast, and it's rehydrated. It's been about 15 minutes. What we're going to do here is add our dry ingredients first, and then mix the wet into the dry. So we're going to start off with 2 cups of flour, a half cup of whole wheat flour, 1 teaspoon of garlic salt, and a couple tablespoons of the dried minced onion. And then just slowly add your yeasty water. The initial mixing process will probably take several minutes. This is normal. What you're doing here is essentially allowing the water to incorporate into the flour, and that creates, over time, gluten. Gluten is the part of the bread that gives it its texture. Right, so now that we're done sort of creating the dough, so to speak, what we want to do is take it out of there and work it into a ball. Just kind of play around with it. I'm going to let this raise up. So get a bowl here, throw some oil in there, coat that sucker up. Right, so now what you want to do is just kind of cover it up with some plastic wrap, and you want to let it rise until it doubles in volume. Until it's, up to about the top and almost touching the plastic wrap here. Now, as you can see, it's been about an hour and a half, and our pizza dough is ready to get kneaded for the first time. So you want to flour your hands up good for this, because it just needs to get kind of squish down. If you've never done this before, well, you're in for a treat, because you're going to need to do this again. So if you screw up the first time, don't worry, you get a do-over. It's all good. You just kind of work it in your hands for a couple of minutes. Just kind of knead it. There's a lot of different kneading techniques out there. Personally, I like the fold over. Once you've got it kneaded back down to about the, 2 palm size, toss her back in there, replace that plastic, and that's primarily keep the dough from drying out there. Right, so it's been about an hour or so since we last kneaded the dough, and as you can see here, it's doubled in size again. So at this point, what we're going to do here is separate it. When you're separating your dough, what you want to do is sprinkle out some flour. Because remember, it's tacky, sort of sticky, might stick. You don't want that. Flour up your hands real good. Alright, so what we're going to do here is chop this into thirds. That pizza dough recipe makes enough for 3 pizzas. So, what you want to do, now that you've chopped it up into thirds, is take a fairly large sheet of plastic wrap, get it ready, knead this down a bit to get rid of the excess gas, because it's going to swell up once you put it in the fridge.